Welcome, fellow travelers. I'm Joe. This is Good Times RVing. Today we have no hot water. Well, it was a bit of a shock because I expected the hot water to come on like normal. So we'll have to figure out that reason. So I'll show you the troubleshooting steps that I'm going to take to figure out what's going on. My first was to consult a schematic, and I'll show you that here. I'll cover the screen with it. So we've got two circuits. We've got a 12 volt circuit and a 110 volt circuit. The 110 volt circuit is isolated from the 12 volt circuit by a relay. That 110 volts is to drive the heater element that's inside the water tank. Everything else is 12 volts. So you want to verify what voltage you're looking at and testing, because otherwise you'll toast some of your equipment. I'm going to use the simplest tools that I can, though I'll use my heat gun just to show you that in fact the tank is cold, because that's important. To know whether or not the thermostat is working. And then, I'll make sure we're getting 12 volt to the system and see exactly, what part has failed, and then we'll go from there. So my first inquiry will be, is the power on? Which it is. Is the inverter on? Because I'm not plugged in. Yes, it's on. Is the water cold? Shower's cold, and the sink water is cold. So two sources, both cold. Chances are we've got no hot water. So I go down and I'll test the tank. I test that with my finger, which doesn't help you on the video in the video world. So I'll show you that with a thermometer gauge. That in fact the tank is cold. So, I did verify the gas circuit. I turned the propane on and I checked to make sure that wasn't working as well. So, nothing in the water tank area is calling for heat. So, my first thought is, okay, either I popped the circuit, i.e. no 12 volts getting down there, or the water heater is not calling for heat. So how does it call for heat? Well, the thermostat is what calls for heat, and the other circuit that can there's two other circuits that can shut off that call for heat. One of which is a fuse wire, which goes into the thermostat, which you can check visually. You can also check with a continuity gauge. And I'll show you how to do that. Not necessary in this instance, but I'll show you how to check continuity. If you do happen to have a voltmeter that has continuity on it, it's pretty easy. So I'll check the fuse wire and I'll check the ECO. So those are the two things that can shut off the call for heat. We got the thermostat, of course, which can not call for heat, because once the water gets up to temperature, the thermostat circuit opens, shutting off the heating element. Or the fuse wire, should the thermostat not do its job and not shut off at temperature and continue to heat the water, things get really toasty, the fuse wire will shut the thermostat circuit off. Or the ECO, if we overtemp, you get, I think it's 80 degrees or 86 degrees centigrade, really hot, that circuit will open. We'll stop the power going to the heating elements. So 3 things to check there, and as long as we're getting 12 volts through that circuit, then we can go try to figure out what else is wrong. But that's my first place, because it's quite honestly the easiest to check. You can check, and you'll see, I'll check 12 volts to the thermostat, which means if we're getting 12 volts to the thermostat, the fuse wire is okay. And then if we're getting 12 volts out of the thermostat, and the tank is cold, this is all with tank cold, then the thermostat is at least calling for heat. We don't know whether it's, at least we know that it's calling for heat. Leave it at that. And then as long as the ECO circuit is open, then that's not shutting that circuit off. And all of that is handled by your little computer box, if you will, in the hot water heater. So that's your next step. Should all this stuff check out, you go to this piece, make sure the connections are good, and then if the water heater is still a little wonky and it's getting power but not distributing it correctly, well, then it might be the computer. So let's go down and check the thermostat and see if that's the issue. Back together. Now, find a good ground. Where do we have 12 volts? Well, we've got 12.3 volts there. You can see that. Which means this is at 12 volts and the fuse link is good. However, we don't have 12 volts there, which means this thermostat is bad. Which, quite honestly, is good news. 12 volt goes through here, back into this device, goes out here, and checks the ECO circuit, and this has no power, which I wouldn't expect, because this circuit is not calling for hot water. And cold. Tank is cold. So it should be calling for hot water because the power is on. Let me go in and shut the power off, and we'll take this apart and fix it up. Okay. There is no power. We've got a picture of what this looks like. This one goes on the bottom, that one on the top. Okay, old one's out, new one's going in. Want to make sure that they go in the right place. This is the thermostat at 60 centigrade. This is the thermostat one. Okay, well, let's get this back together. Not as neat as I'd like it to be, but so be it. Okay, looks like we're back together. Time for the big test. See if we got some heat. Good news. Okay, so let's see if this thing's going to work. 12 volts is on. Inverter is on. Everything's settled down. I don't hear it coming on. Huh, we've got heat. I just heard it come on. Yippee! Well, we've got heat. You can hear the thing roaring. I got to adjust that yet, but this, of course, it's windy out today, so it's going to make some noise. But we've got hot water. Yippee! We've got hot water. Now I'll shut off the gas and let the heating element heat it up the rest of the way just to make sure that's working. Looks like we've got, I'll come, once this thing, hopefully this will shut off at some point, and I'll check that heat to make sure it's not over temped, just to make sure that things are working the way they're supposed to work. Alrighty, well, now that we've got hot water again, I'll head to the showers. But I thought you'd find that interesting and hopefully useful. For my GC10A-4E hot water heater, the part number is 91447. However, make sure that you check your model number before you order these parts, because they are different. This thermostat's 141 Fahrenheit, 60 something centigrade. You check on the back. And these two items, and I'll show you these two items, they're different. The ECO is much hotter, because that's an overheat condition, than the thermostat is. So that's how you can tell the difference between these two. And you'll want to check those closely before you install them. So, hopefully you found that useful. Happy trails. See you on the road. I'm Joe, and this is Good Times RVing.